Good morning. Happy Sunday. This is the first lecture today, and I'm very sorry. I was supposed to run one as from 7 a.m. the East African time, but I got late. So this is the first presentation or lecture today, and it is on the final step. That is step number 9 in the forensic investigation process. And this is just an introduction. I've planned a series of lectures on step number 9 of the forensic investigation process, which is report writing standards. How to do a forensic report. Today, I'm going to do just an introduction to report writing. The investigation professionals, the CFIPs, are advised to be more proactive when it comes to report writing, and each case should have a report tailored to it. The tailoring I'm talking about here is about the report content, not the report structure, because each and every case will have its own unique details. Some cases will be biased towards the digital forensics. Some cases will be on money laundering. Some cases will be on various areas, and even including violent crime, because CIPs are trained to handle both the financial and violent crimes. A nice report is a result of well-planned investigation and the accurate execution of that investigation and the report writing plan. The standard flow, that is the structure of the report, must, however, be followed or maintained. I'm going to discuss 9 steps within the step number 9 of the forensic investigation process. That is an introduction to report writing. I'm going to discuss the 9 steps within this step, the last step of the forensic investigation process. There are 3 steps. There are 9 steps that must be followed in order to complete step 9 of the forensic investigation process. You can call them stages or steps. Either can do. Step number 1. First and foremost, before a report is done, an investigation assignment must be completed. Not just be completed, but it must be completed effectively following the terms of reference, the scope of the investigation, and the investigation plan. You will agree with me that report writing is there to give life to the investigation process. to be like a mouthpiece, of the investigation process. Because here we are saying that the report will be able to explain the processes carried out, the findings that were found, or the people that were interviewed, and many other investigative processes, and including the kit of forensics analysis and examination. The report will outlining everything, including the findings. So we cannot have a report before we conclude a very good investigation. Therefore, the foundation of our good investigation report is a well planned and executed forensic investigation assignment. That is why when we were talking about the 9 steps, when we started talking about the 9 steps of the forensic investigation process, which we have discussing in a series of previous lectures, we reached, or we discussed in step number 3 about planning the investigation and allocating resources for carrying out the investigation. So the planning and execution of a forensic investigation assignment is the basis or the foundation of a good report, because the information we will get to put into a report, the findings and everything, even the testimonies of the witnesses, and the information we are going to get from the suspects, this is what going to build up or to be built into the forensic investigation report. So step number 1 of the report writing step in the in the investigation process is very, very important. Step number 2. When we come to step number 2 of report writing, we must now sit down to plan the layout of the report, or we use the standard structure. The standard structure, or the generally accepted standard structure of a report of this nature is as follows. Number 1, introduction. The report must have an introduction. The report must have an introduction, and the introduction will include the allegation and the hiring authority for the forensic assignment. You must state what was the allegation and who gave you the authority, or who hired you to carry out the investigation assignment, and then go ahead to list the investigation team. The investigation team will be listed in section number 1 of the report. That is under introduction. You will state the hiring authority, what the allegation was, and then you go ahead and list the investigation team. Then section 2 of the report, executive summary of findings. The executive summary, you would realize that forensic reports can be very big, very, very big, depending on the complexity of the assignment. So the management or the hiring authority and even the whole world will be interested in the summary of findings. Summary of findings, therefore, will summarize all the major findings, what you found out, the amount involved, so that any person looking at the report will just know at a glance what happened, what you found out, and how much was involved from the executive summary of findings. When you move to stage 3 of the report, you will have detailed findings with good reference to the next files containing experts. Sorry. You could also realize that investigation of a financial nature, that is investigation of fraud, corruption, money laundering, etc., will involve uh, the correction of hundreds and even tens of hundreds of exhibits, and this will fill several files. Therefore, when you are detailing your findings, you must be making reference to the files where a certain finding or evidence that gave you that you corrected is, whether in file number 1, file number 2, and then each and every exhibit must be serialized for easy retrieval in case one wants to get one and look at it. The detailed part of the report will be pages and volumes of it will be volumes. It can even be volume number 1, volume number 2, volume number 3, volume number 5 of the findings, detailing everything. That is why in stage section number 2 above, summary, executive summary of findings is very, very important, because even the court will not go into the details. Will not go into the details. They will have to look at the executive summary and then leave the details to the defense, the defense and the prosecution to go into the details when taking through the witnesses and suspects through the cross cross examination. Number 4, that is section number 4. This is where you outline the limitations to your investigation, what you tend to do and you think was important was important for the proper conclusion of the report. You will state here what you was supposed to be done but was not done due to maybe limitation as to time and even resources. You stated the limitations, the reasons why you did not manage to carry out some specific tests or investigation processes, and then you write down a recommendation for further investigation. This is where the prosecution, when they get the report, they will look at and then advise, institute further investigation to complete the evidence correction. Then you move to another section. After limitations and further investigation work to be done, you move to recommendations of what should be done. to prevent recurrence. And this will depend on the engagement. If one of your requirements was to come up with recommendations of what the management should do or the government should do to prevent recurrence of the same crimes, then you have to put that section in the report and then explain exactly what should be done to prevent recurrence of the same crime in future. Finally, you do the recommendations based on the findings. This recommendation will either be for the prosecution of the identified suspects as per the findings, or the advice or recommendation to the hiring authority to stop here if the findings do not support the allegation. That is, if the allegation, according to the findings, the allegations were false, then the process will stop here. You cannot go to prosecution, for example, knowing full well that you do not have evidence to support the allegations. That will be self-embarrassing. Self-embarrassing. Therefore, if the investigators come to the conclusion that the findings do not support the allegation, that the allegations were either false or the suspicions were misplaced, then no further action should be taken. But if the findings point to the possibility of suspects being guilty of the offense, and there is overwhelming evidence against the suspects, then you can recommend for prosecution and then offer yourself to uh, testify on your findings by the summons of the court. Step number 3, consolidating the reports of the investigation sub-teams to come up with a rough draft report. You would realize that in a large investigation assignment, you will have several teams. You will have the forensic investigation, forensic digital investigation teams. You will have teams working at the branches. You will have teams working even abroad. You will have teams working at the head office, at the main place of the crime perpetration. And in this case, each team will have a timeline within which to complete the assigned tasks and then forward their sub-report. The sub-teams will complete the assignments and submit their report to the lead forensic investigator, who will take the reports and consolidate them into a rough draft report. This is step number 3 of the report writing. So in number 3, the lead forensic investigator will be collecting all the sub team reports together and then combine them, put them in the investigation report structure we have talked about, and then after that we move step number 4. In step number 4, the report is now taken back, should be taken back to the sub teams. The consolidated report should be taken back should be taken back to the should be taken back to the uh, teams so that they can go through it. They go through the report uh, to check to confirm whether number one, their sub team's report was captured in the consolidated report. Number two, to carry out preliminary editing on the report uh, of other teams. And the lead forensic investigator should be able to guide them, to give them instructions what to do with the report. As I've said, number one, they will be checking whether their sub team's report was properly captured in the consolidated report. If it is omitted, then they will raise that fact with the lead investigator so that it does a revised enough report, a draft report, by including everything the sub teams submitted. Number two, the sub teams will have the instruction to edit to carry out preliminary editing to the report. You can agree with me that when you do a report, uh, it is not easy for you to edit it yourself and then spot the errors, either overuse of words, excess of use of excess words in the report, or a grammar errors. It is not easy for you to notice, but when that report is looked at by the rest of the investigators, they will be able to see where the errors are, and then they will recommend for corrections. So the sub teams will do the two things, confirming whether or not their sub reports were captured in the draft report, and number two, to carry out preliminary editing to the rough draft of the report. Number five, when you come to step number five of the report writing, you have to now compare the rough draft report to the terms of reference under the investigation plan to see whether everything that needed to be done, everything that needed to be done was done. We are now at step number five. Compare the rough draft report to the terms of reference and the investigation plan to see whether everything that needed to be done has actually been done and a report included. If something is discovered at this stage, not to have been done, then that area must be examined thoroughly and then a report included, so that we have a revised rough draft of the report. Number six, re-examination. One is those areas which have not been adequately covered have been discovered. Then re-examination. Examination must be done. Investigation must be done in that area, so that we come up with a revised draft report. That is step number six of the report writing process. Step number 7 of the report writing process. And as I've already mentioned, report writing, forensic report writing, is the final step number 9 in the forensic investigation process. But within step number 9 of the forensic investigation process, there are steps that have to be taken so that we have an effective forensic investigation report. And that is what my lecture is on today. So we have come to step number 7. The investigation team members should edit the revised draft report thoroughly in order to arrive at the first draft report for submission to the client. Once the investigation team is satisfied that they have done everything according to the terms of reference and the investigation plan, then they have to sit down and then edit the rough draft report thoroughly to remove all the excess words, to remove all the repetitions, to remove the unnecessary sentences, to ensure that the report is grammatically correct before arriving at the first draft to be submitted to the client. This is important because as the investigation team uh, is required to do a professional job, professional work. They are not expected to submit a report with a lot of errors, grammatical errors, everything not in place. So they must carry out thorough editing, take even a whole day, even 2 days or 3 days, even 5 days, depending on the length of the report, to edit it thoroughly before it can be submitted to the client as the first draft, uh, uh, so that the client goes through it and then uh, sends it back to the investigation team with either recommendations for further uh, uh, investigation to be done in certain areas, or to confirm that the report is okay, and then the investigation team moves to come up with the second draft report to the client. Once the investigation team have responded to the concerns listed by the client, and everything is firmed up, everything is done, then there must be a second draft report to the client. And at this stage, I think the client will send back the report and say, this is correct, please print it, sign it, and send it to us. Once that happens, then the report ends there. If the client decides to raise more concerns, then that must be responded to before the final report is done. So step number 9 of the report, forensic report preparation, is the finalization of the forensic investigation report by having it professionally edited, signed by the lead investigator, and then submission to the client. I've deliberately used the phrase professionally edited. Professionally edited here means that you, as the investigator or the investigating team, you are not students under examination. You are professionals, and therefore You are allowed to use other professionals to assist you to do a clean job. In this case, once the report as investigation has been concluded and the report is ready for submission to the client, you must first use professional editors, those people who are trained in editing, those people who are experienced in editing, to have a look at your report so that it is perfect. You would note that the forensic report, once submitted to the client, it becomes a public document. You'll be telling the client that this report is between us, the investigators, and you as the client, and therefore no sharing of this report to people that is irrelevant people. But if, and in most cases it does happen, if the court requests for the report, then it must be submitted to the court as per the orders. And once submitted to the courts, the report becomes a public document. It can even be taken by the print and electronic media, and even be so that it is analyzed, discussed, serialized widely, so it becomes a public document and it can easily be published. That is why it has to be flawless. It has to have no errors. No errors. It has to be perfect. So that when it goes to the public, no embarrassing errors will be highlighted. And if such errors are highlighted, then the reputation and even integrity of you as an investigator will be tainted, will be damaged. And if the errors they have huge impact, and then that will mean that your integrity as an investigator will be badly, irredeemably damaged. So care must be taken here. What you would note is that a report, as I said from the beginning, is to act as a mouthpiece of the investigation. The client and the whole world, including the court, will not know what you did unless you give them a report. You cannot know what the forensic, digital forensic investigator did unless he or she gives a report detailing the procedures, the digital forensic procedures carried out, the e-suspects interviewed, the the evidence corrected and analyzed and examined. Without having that put in the report, you cannot know what the digital forensics expert did, for example. So the report, the forensic investigation report, acts as a mouthpiece of the forensic investigation report. The forensic investigation, sorry. So I will reckon a very good report, forensic investigation report to a head and mouth, because a person without head and mouth cannot be able to express himself, cannot be able to answer questions and even respond to any queries. Therefore, a well-done report with a well done investigation without a good report is useless, because it is like a person, a well dressed person who is without the head. Uh, what purpose will such a person serve? If a person is there and is like beheaded, the head and the neck and everything, the nose, the mouth, and the eyes are not there. That is a useless thing. If you ask that person to explain anything, he can't. He cannot even say his name because there is no mouth. So a well done investigation report without a well done investigation without a good report is that a person without the head, because that person cannot be able to explain himself. So the report is very important, very important, the final stage in the investigation process, but the most important, as I can say, because without it, nobody will understand what you did, and therefore it will be like you did nothing. Sorry, I had left my phone on. This is a mistake. Sorry for the interference. But I had already come to the end of the lecture, today's lecture, and I would I will give a minute or two for a comment or a question before I hang up until later in the day, when I will come on with another lecture on forensic report writing. I'm going to do various lectures on forensic report writing because it is important, and then come back again to documentary evidence examination before I wind up the lectures that are aimed at covering the forensic investigation masterclass. So in the next few lectures, I will be concluding my discussion on the forensic investigation masterclass, and therefore those who did not uh, have a chance to attend to live lectures will have the recorded lectures on YouTube to replay and watch as they take notes. And then all students will be encouraged to be attending the interactive sessions where they can ask questions, where they can get advice and experience shared by the experienced practitioners. I can see there is no question, and therefore I hang up. Thank you very much for attending this lecture and listening attentively. Bye bye.